Who doesn't want a free $1,000? In Breath of Fire 2 for the Super Nintendo, before you take on Cat, the feisty feline combatant, you're normally supposed to grab this $1,000. Which, once you tell Rand about the devious poison needle plot, will prompt Rand to tell you to give you all his money. So there goes that $1,000. Where's Rand going to get antidotes anyway? They're 12 bucks a piece here. However, when you grab the money, if you immediately leave and run over to the nearest bank teller and deposit all of the money that you just acquired, now when Rand asks you for all your money, you can give it to him with a smile on your face. All $0 of it. Buy some antidotes with that, Rand. Consider this video a Breath of Fire 2 for the Super Nintendo PSA. The game kind of hints at it right here as well, with Cat mentioning about the poison needle. Before this fight, you took 2 antidotes to protect from poison. So what you have to do after the fight is, as soon as the battle ends, Rand gives you a very poorly translated clue to knock her out now, which what that means is just simply push up and push her out of the way. Don't knock her out, push her out of the way. After that, Cat will thank you for being such a nice guy, and you're gonna thank yourself too, because if you don't do that, you have to do the next boss fight with the hero and Rand alone, and the next boss is a doozy. So you want to make sure your new friend isn't taking a cat nap. Let me show you what I like to consider the very first genocide run, and you can find it in Breath of Fire 2 for the Super Nintendo. In any given place where there's monsters you can fight, you can see a dancing fella in the top center of the screen. However, this particular area, if you just continue to fight monsters, if you just stick it out and continue to kill everything in this area, eventually when you check the menu, the little dancing monster man is asleep, indicating you have murdered everything in this area. This is the only non-storyline related area in this game that I know of where you can do this. Do you know of any RPGs that predate Breath of Fire 2 that happen to have the actual very first genocide run? I'd love to hear about it in the comment section. When you get to this area in Breath of Fire 2 for the Super Nintendo, your first order of business is you're going to want to visit the Wildcat Cafe. Wildcat Restaurant is really strict about manners, but if you want a really useful ability for grinding levels very soon, you have to sort of follow these instructions. Upon entry, you do have to deposit your items, no two ways about it. However, once these signs start to instruct you, you are allowed to say no twice. I would recommend saying no to taking off your jacket as well as your weapon and shield. However, if you do, you'll have this hulking bouncer guy to fight. Finally, before the boss room, you're asked how you want your meat cooked. Be sure to choose rare. After beating the mini-boss, be sure to tell them that you're just fine with the fact that they tried to turn you into steaks. And then all you have to do after that is tell them that you are soft-hearted also. And we're gonna learn the Chop Chop ability, which ignores defense, and we're gonna use that very shortly to gain a whole bunch of levels. Chop Chop! If you want ferocious dragon powers in Breath of Fire 2 for the Super Nintendo, as soon as you recruit your Frog Prince friend named Jean, turn into his even larger frog form and jump into this lake. And if RPG 101 hasn't taught you anything, you always gotta check out the waterfalls. In this case, use Jean's form to check the waterfall from above, and enter this hidden area. But if you manage to find him here, you will get yourselves, as I had mentioned, some ferocious dragon powers. Without the upgrade, you can still access the dragon puppy form, which will still do a respectable 256 damage on a full magic bar. However, with the evolved dragon form, you're going to be able to do a whopping 512 damage to every enemy on the screen. So after getting this upgrade, there's no excuse for you to be dragging behind on levels. If you missed out on getting the Water Shaman in Breath of Fire 2 for the Super Nintendo, it's quick and easy to go back and get them. So what you have to do is, after completing the events in the Witch's Tower, you want to climb all the way back up to this room here, and take the rightmost platform in order to take this leftmost path. Follow this path all the way to the end, and just like that, the Water Shaman is yours. You should go use her! What are you waiting for? I love Breath of Fire 2 for the Super Nintendo to death. But the worst part of the game has to be the random encounter frequency. Fortunately, I'm here to tell you about all the ways you can mitigate it. Today being Jean's frog form. I only just recently found out that this form helps mitigate random encounters. As you can plainly see right here, we made it to Capitan, all the way back to Windia with Jean's frog form. But I also decided to couple it with the smoke item, which also is supposed to reduce random encounters. There's speculation that smoke doesn't work, but I'd say coupling that with Jean's ability, it works just fine. However, there is yet another way you can reduce random encounters in Breath of Fire 2. Did you know, in Breath of Fire 2, a game that has a legendarily bad random encounter rate, that there's actually an accessory in it that lowers random encounters? This is how you get it. So observe the map here. This is where you have to go to get this fishing spot. At this point in the game, you should have access to the deluxe pole, which can be found in Simafort, and you should also have access to a gold by now. And once you've caught this fish man, you can go into his item shop and buy the Holy Grail of Breath of Fire 2, the Holy SF, where you meet the enemy less for the low price of $5,000. Equip the Holy SF on the lead party member, then also couple that with the smoke item, which also lowers random encounters. Finally, for the trifecta, get into Jean's ability to lower random encounters even further, and enjoy the lowest random encounter rate that Breath of Fire 2 has to offer. You can shatter Breath of Fire 2 to pieces as soon as you recruit Grandpa the Whale for marine exploration. The first step for cracking this game wide open is to take Grandpa here, in this corner. Unless you look real closely, you're probably gonna miss the little dish-looking spot in this desert. It's very faint to see, but it's right here. And then you just gotta talk to these spirits that may be familiar if you played Breath of Fire 1, but they will tell you that blue has gone out. Once you've done all that, make your way back to your hometown and talk to this woman here in the magic school, only to find out that it's the mystical sorceress Blue, who is so unbelievably good at this stage of the game. Not only does Blue start at level 35, she starts out with middle game magic and will get end game magic very soon. She also has the ability Shed, which in addition to being a place to store your lawnmower, will also give her full hit points. If you didn't know about this, I just blew your mind. Here's how you easily find the best grinding spot in Breath of Fire 2. As soon as you acquire Grandpa the Whale, make your way to the northern hemisphere of the map and locate Windia. From Windia, just go this way until you see this lone tree right here. And for a point of reference, this is where we are on the map. But if you use this tree and just go due north from here, it'll take you right to Monster Island, which will give you access to all sorts of great enemies for great experience if you know how to kill them. In Breath of Fire 2 for the Super Nintendo, the A-Sludge is one of the best enemies in the game to farm experience off of. What does A stand for? It's a really big sludge. I want to know what you think in the comments. But the best way to deal with them is to recruit the secret character Blue and cast the Death spell on it. Death is 100% effective on this monster. So all you have to do is survive one turn, and it's immediately dead. 12,000 experience points. And how many minutes of work was that? Next up on our experience grind in Breath of Fire 2 for the Super Nintendo is the Chore King. But doing this is anything but a chore if you're prepared. There's two ways that I would advise dealing with this guy. One way that you can deal with them is to use any of these dragon forms. You could even use the weakest puppy form, because it ignores defense, and it'll do more than enough damage to take it out. However, if you did the Wildcat Restaurant quest that I did a video on earlier this week, you would have gotten the ability Chop Chop, which also ignores defense, and does just enough damage to take it out as well. Honestly, I'd recommend Chop Chop if you have it, because it doesn't use any MP. The gigantic Gong Head. Not the enemy that you want to encounter when you're experience farming on Monster Island in Breath of Fire 2 for the Super Nintendo, but I'm going to tell you the best way to deal with them. So what I recommend is you attack with everyone in the party except for Blue, who I highly recommend you bring along. And make sure that she attack-ups the rest of the party for the first 3 rounds of combat. Presuming you did enough damage in the previous round, the Gong Head will cast Cure 4, fully healing itself. However, the second time the Gong Head uses Cure 4, it's out of MP, and it will try to use Cure 4 the following round if it's sustained enough damage. So that's why you want to pile on as much damage as you can this round, because next round, The only difference in round 4 is you want to cast some strong magic with blue and optionally use a dragon with the hero. Follow all of these tips and this enemy is going to be gone with the Restless. In Breath of Fire 2 for the Super Nintendo, if you're real unlucky grinding on Monster Island, you'll run into one of these gold goos, known simply as the K-Sludge or King Sludge. You can encounter up to groups of 3 of these guys. We actually got really lucky here and only encountered 1, so we should be able to beat him. So in order to do this, we're going to have to give it everything we have. These things have approximately 1,000 hit points. So we're going to want to use all of our strongest stuff, whatever that may be. For the hero, it's the dragon form. Right now for blue, it's our missile ability. Nina's strongest thing would be freeze, and Sten, we're just going to do bomb. Okay, we survived the first round, but don't get cocky. The weaker these things get, the more likely it is that they'll cast the death spell. So give it everything you have or die trying. You're not going to be able to run away from this guy, so if you're lucky, he won't cast the death spell, and you'll only encounter one of them. And then you'll get about 30,000 experience points for your trouble. Normally in Breath of Fire 2 for the Super Nintendo, when you get to the point where you have to save the grass man from being eaten by a demon, you're supposed to either collect a monster called the Upper Uppa to take the place of the grass man, or pay 900,000 coins. But what if you collect 900,000 coins instead? What happens? Well, we went out and got $900,000. It is possible to do without cheating. As you can see, I did this on the Nintendo Switch version. Let's see what happens when we give them the money instead of the creature. Are you stupid? I never imagined you would actually bring this kind of money. 900,000 coins for this grass? That's hilarious. I'll give up on the salad show because you made me laugh, but I'll do a show where you guys get killed instead. If you do decide to do this, though, you do get to skip the Upper Uppa cave, and you don't have to fight the boss that's guarding the owl fruit. But I checked, and you can go back and still complete them if you wish. See, I told you watching this video would save you $900,000. In Breath of Fire 2 for the Super Nintendo, when you have to go to the Uppa cave to catch an Upper Uppa, the only 2 that you can catch is this one right here, second from the left, or this one that's 5th from the left along the top. Although this isn't why I'm here right now. Once you catch an Upper Uppa and then beat it within an inch of its life, you'll have the opportunity to capture it or let it free. Then I advise that you agree to let the Upper Uppa go free, and in order to show its gratitude, it'll leave you a nice juicy treasure chest. And what is in this nice juicy treasure chest, you may ask? Well, right now, right here, it's a Buster Sword. Not too bad. However, if you leave this area, then turn right around and immediately come back inside and go right back to the treasure chest you were just at, you'll find that the treasure chest is once again full. This time with a charm shield. It's not every day you can plunder the same chest twice. In Breath of Fire 2 for the Super Nintendo, when you're wandering around the High Fort area later in the game, you may stumble across this treasure chest containing a collar. If you check out this accessory's description, it'll tell you it has strange powers. So seeing this item's name and it being clearly for your party member Cat, you might equip it on her and then think nothing of it. However, the strange power that the collar has is that it raises your random encounter rate, which I think was a real dirty move by Capcom to do that, because if you find the Holy Scarf, it at least has the common courtesy to tell you it meets the enemy less. Whereas you may equip the collar and then wonder why the second half of this game has such brutal random encounters. Sorry, I just have to call her as I see her. Here's another PSA for you for Breath of Fire 2 for the Super Nintendo. At this point in the game, you're expected to find this variety of mushroom and bring it back to this man. However, if you bring back the wrong variety of mushroom, you're forced to go through this entire dungeon again. So I'm going to save you the aggravation and just show you what the correct mushroom is. It's this mushroom right here. Just grab this one. In Breath of Fire 2 for the Super Nintendo, if you want to get the main character's best weapon, you must first gain the power of flight, and then make your way to this area, not too far from Township. Then all you gotta do is fish it on out of the treasure chest that is here. In order to catch treasure chests in this game, you can either use gold or urchins. Gold is more of a pain to get a hold of, so I would recommend urchins. And in order to catch a treasure chest, you need at least the deluxe pole, but preferably the charm rod. And once you've done that, take a look inside and you'll find the Empire Sword. Not only is the Empire Sword most likely about 100 offense higher than anything you have right now, the Empire Sword is also innately electric. and if you decide to use it in battle, it'll cast Sonic Boom for some reason. 3 lightning strikes and you're out. The more I revisit the Breath of Fire series, the more I'm convinced that Undertale creator Toby Fox was a huge Breath of Fire fan. I actually just discovered that there was a Breath of Fire 2 reference in Undertale, and I bet you that you didn't know about it. So where you find it is when you're in Hotland, this area in particular, there's like this imaginary step that you can walk up, right here. And if you read this sign, it says, Art Club, meet here, next meeting, October 10th, 8 p.m. Now you're probably asking yourself right now, how the hell is this a Breath of Fire reference? Well, allow me to show you with this up here. This piece of dialogue in Breath of Fire 2 is not normally accessible through normal means of gameplay. However, it is still accessible. Now I know the Undertale one says 5 p.m., but October 10th for both? Come on, that's a reference. In Breath of Fire 2 for the Super Nintendo, normally, in order to recruit the Holy Shaman, you have to come back to this Bando dungeon after having completed it and go in this room right here. However, if you step on this arrow right here and let it go all the way to the end until it doesn't move anymore, just stay standing on it and wait for about 5 minutes. Once the room starts shaking again, continue to stand on the arrow until it shakes no more. Once the arrow-induced earthquakes have ceased, be sure to step on the back arrow 1 time and then proceed down to the end of the very long hallway. And after you finally make it to the end of this long hallway, you can talk to Senny right here, the Holy Shaman, and they'll be more than happy to go to Granny's place for some fusion in Breath of Fire 2 for the Super Nintendo. If you don't want to really have to worry about random battles in the late game, well, here's the fusion that you're gonna want. Be sure to have Nina in the party and select Spoo, the Wind Shaman, and Senny, the Holy Shaman. When fused, Nina does get a pretty substantial upgrade. However, it's her special ability in battle that we're most interested in. This ability in question is the Banish ability, which, believe it or not, makes enemies run away almost 100% of the time. It's probably closer to 90%. The vast majority of the time, this Banish ability works. Whereas if you try to run away, it'll work like 1 in 10 times. So if you don't want to get into any more random battles, you can banish them to the Nether Realm. In Breath of Fire 2 for the Super Nintendo, if you want to recruit the Earth Shaman, when Rand's mom, Daisy, asks you to go make a donation at Namanda for a good harvest, do so, but be sure to do so at least 20 times. So long as you have donated at least $2,000 for a good harvest, just proceed through the game as normal. Once you've finished with a certain storyline-related activity, just head back to Farm Town and check Daisy's backyard. If done correctly, you'll see the Earth Shaman here waiting to be collected. Now that we've recruited the Earth Shaman, we've recruited 5 out of the 6 Shamans in Breath of Fire 2. So I guess you could say that we've covered a lot of ground. Here's an Easter egg that I just found out about in Breath of Fire 2 for the Super Nintendo that I think is neat. Breath of Fire 2 is one of the few RPGs I know of that does magical crit damage. In this case with the Hail spell, you'll know you did a critical spell if you have those cute little puppy dogs following the gigantic Ice Wolf. But if you go all the way to the Sky Tower and get into a battle deep underwater, if you're lucky enough to get a crit magic effect with Hail down here underwater, you get this neat underwater frozen crystallization effect that should murder everything. But fortunately you survive. I just thought this was a cool Easter egg, you know? If you want the best ending in Breath of Fire 2, be mindful of these things. First step is max out the population of your town with 3 tenants, then talk to this carpenter right here so he can expand your town. Next step is to be sure to fall into this well and poke around a little bit. If you don't do this, you cannot actually expand your town. Next on our list is once you gain access to sea travel, make your way back to the town of Gunts. And then you just want to make your way all the way back to this room and just hide behind these bookshelves, which leads to a hidden staircase. Once you've come down these steps, find the person that's here. They may be hidden when you come down here. Aichichi. And if you've gone down the well, you'll be able to actually recruit her for your town. And unless you do this, you cannot get the best ending in Breath of Fire 2. There's a few more steps than that, but this is the easiest one to miss. Sorry. Thanks a bunch. You saved us all a lot of inconvenience. Look, I'm probably not supposed to do this, but as a token of my thanks, I'll give one of you guys the Manda's Force. I want to kick my TV in out of excitement. I can only get away with this once, though. Pick out which one of you needs it the most and talk to me again. Oh, does it do half damage? Every time? In Breath of Fire 2, for the Super Nintendo, it was just brought to my attention that I neglected to bring up where Sten's best weapon is, the Demon Dagger. Furthermore, I also found out that there's a bit of controversy about where exactly you can even find the Demon Dagger, but I'm going to show you how. The first step is you have to get far enough in the game that you can enter the Thieves' Tomb. I elected to go to the bottom screen here, where it's sort of like a board game. Then what you gotta do is find the correct enemy, in which case, we did find one. It is the Sheaf enemies. They do have a chance of dropping the Demon Dagger. That chance is approximately a 1 in a 64 drop. And there we go. 1 Demon Dagger. In Breath of Fire 2 for the Super Nintendo, if you want Cat's best weapon, you have to fight these enemies called Carms, and you have approximately a 1 in 64 chance actually getting one. And if you're lucky, you'll actually pick yourself up a Meow Staff. Boosting our level 26 fused cat up to a power level of 300. Now ain't that just the cat's pajamas? In Breath of Fire 2, for the Nintendo 2, otherwise known as the Super Nintendo, if you want to get a real good piece of armor, you gotta fight these fellas called the Big Hands. And if you're lucky, you'll find yourself a Mammoth Claw. You have approximately a 1 in 64 chance of getting a Mammoth Claw, and you can equip it on either Cat or Rand. I tend to give it to Cat because she has much lower defense. And now you got this cloth, you're the Mammoth with the Plammoth. In Breath of Fire 2 for the Super Nintendo, if you're looking for Spar's best weapon, it's gonna be in this side room here, pretty deep in the final dungeon of the game. But in order to get it, you have to encounter a pretty rare monster. But the fastest way of encountering this rare monster is to fuse Sten with wind and fire, which will give him this ability called Sway. Then when you use Sway, it'll re-roll whatever your encounter is. So you just keep on doing this until you finally encounter this chimera-looking enemy called the Zodiac. The Zodiac is easily dispensed with 1 G-Dragon ability, but you definitely want to make sure Sten stays alive, because if he dies, this will make your grind much slower. This is a 1 in 64 chance drop. Yeah, there we go. It doesn't look very impressive for a level 17 Spar, but if you're a completionist, you're gonna want to root around for it. Even the heroes in Breath of Fire 2 for the Super Nintendo deserve to have some good food on Christmas, and I'm gonna share some recipes. I recommend that you have both Dai and Hans recruited into your town. For the first delicious meal, select 2 medicates. This will create a power food, permanently increasing offense by 1. Use an F-Spice and 2 tuna and you get some stamina, defense up by 1. But if you want a great source of AP healing, combine a stamina with 2 tuna, and make a delicious Wise BL. If you're feeling lucky, cook 4 minnow for a piece of luck candy. But if you want to raise your wisdom permanently, combine 2 F-Spices for a miso soup. Cook 2 Frisbees together and you get a Dinker, agility up by 1. But if you put 2 Dinkers together, you can make yourself a biscuit. It recovers HP completely, but also casts defense up X on the whole party. Lastly, if you have Hans in your town, combine 3 condition up to get gold bars, which sell for 6,000 gold, infinite money, and great food. Best Christmas ever!